Hey everybody, welcome back. I had to come inside today. The rainstorms are moving through the area, so no outdoor filming today, but that's okay. I always just enjoy the chance I get to talk to everybody and dive into some interesting subjects. And if you saw the title of today's video, this one's definitely interesting. Really, I would have to define it as not just open marriages and not just basically another step towards the decline of relationships between men and women and the sanctity of anything, being honest and real. But I would have to define it as something that should be of concern for all of us. Um, so, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. And first of all, I'm going to address kind of the elephant in the room that usually a lot of people will ask me about. They'll be like, Steve, why are you concerned about this? This is a situation between two consenting adults. Why in the world could you possibly have a problem with it? It's two consenting adults after all, right? Except in these particular situations, it's almost never two people that are fully consenting. It is usually one person pushing this particular situation onto the other person to a certain degree until they eventually cave and usually give into it. And you might say, well, they gave into it eventually. Well, that's a form of realistic, that's just coercion and forcing somebody under duress to a certain degree to do that. And you have to realize what's hanging over their head that could cause this to happen. I went through the very same thing myself with my marriage. I'm not referring to this situation, but I mean, when you're aware of what the courts can do to you if you initiate a divorce or you're going through a divorce, especially if you're the partner that earns more money, especially if you're a guy, when you are aware of what the courts can do to you, you have a very real fear of ever going. If you're already married and you're already trapped, and they turn around and they pull this sort of trump card on you, where they're like, "Hey, guess what? Now I want to go do this. What are you going to do about it?" Because you don't want to go through the divorce, have your life torn apart for years, risk maybe never seeing your kids again, risk having them poisoned against you. But ultimately, you're going to end up having to choose that. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's easy to judge it and treat it like, well, I would never, but to a certain degree, you have to realize that is what is hanging over the heads of people that are kind of getting coerced and pressured into doing this. And it is always one party pushing it a bit more than the other. They might both eventually kind of say that they're supporting it, but let's be realistic, that's not really, there's always one that wants it more than the other. And the interesting statistic nowadays is this isn't just some guy that's trying to introduce some sort of sexual fantasy into the marriage or the relationship. It is abundantly women now actually pushing this. And the women are being empowered in many ways by therapists who are now coming along and actually defending this sort of behavior and trying to make it seem like you are somehow, as a man, if you don't dive in for this sort of thing, that you're somehow insecure and something's wrong with you and you just need to be understanding of your wife's needs and all this other stuff, when the reality of the situation is the reason why anybody would be afraid of this is you're now being locked in legally, financially, and in many other ways with a person that is now stepping out on you, and it's being openly acknowledged, but they've still got you basically trapped in a marriage that is now just a facade. It's not even real anymore. You're not even faithful to each other. They're just forcing you into a position where you have to just accept it, maybe even against your own will to a certain degree, until maybe you bend to it or you get out of there and take go through the hard knock school of divorce. And we have to just address the reality of that. Most people there's one partner that's getting pushed into it, and most people aren't diving and immediately hitting the eject button simply because they are scared to death of what the divorce courts are going to do. So they're going to have to take that red pill of accepting that. And the insanity of all of this, the real insanity, as if everything I've just said isn't completely insane, is that the therapists are making it almost sound like this is somebody's choice of an alternate lifestyle, some way that they're identifying or some way that needs to be treated with respect. And they are well aware that it is about a 92% failure rate of every marriage that goes into becoming an open marriage. Basically, the door swings wide open, and now there's going to be either a third party, somewhat to some degree, long term involved, multiple other parties potentially involved, um, sex, romance, all sorts of stuff happening that is going to break up the connection and commitment between the two main people. And the other major thing that they never address with this that I thought I'd go ahead and address is that there is no legal ties or ramifications for any third parties, fourth parties, whoever comes in and gets involved with this. They don't carry any of the weight of this when this whole thing collapses into the giant, messy divorce that it is inevitably going to become. They don't answer for any of that. They're a big, huge part of it. They come in for all the bedroom fun, for the fling and the fantasy and all of that, but they don't answer for any of the consequences that come from it. Which I think, on a legal standpoint, if they were to ever enforce something like that, the whole idea of an open marriage would go right out the door very quickly because nobody wants the consequences of their actions. Those of you that have any red pill understanding realize that basically our society, and particularly women, when it comes to this sort of thing, are being bred to and encouraged to believe that consequences are pretty much kryptonite. We need to avoid those. We need to never acknowledge those. We don't want to talk as if consequences for our actions are ever going to happen. But in this case, that needs to land on the people that are coming into it, not just the person who's suggesting and pushing that sort of thing. And there needs to be laws in place, even. And I'm saying this realizing the whole time that that would be expecting sanity and logic from our legal system that I know is not going to happen. Putting a law in place where if somebody ever, presents you with a situation of, hey, I'm going to put you between a rock and a hard place, you have to either get divorced, you have to get it, or you have to get into an open marriage, that would be a situation that's under duress, and you should have the right to hit the eject button on that marriage immediately, and maybe even come after that person legally, because they shouldn't have the right to put you into that situation in the first place at all. They should be feeling like they're walking on very thin ice when they do it, and they should be scared. One of the major reasons why of that is, well, let's all be brutally honest here. Nobody gets into a marriage, plans a life, plans to have children, plans a future with somebody, knowing in the back of their head the whole time, oh, gee, when the third party comes into this, nobody enters a marriage that way. Nobody enters a marriage expecting there to be any form of openness, sexually or romantically, with any other people, or you never would have gone into it in the first place. Why would you marry into something like that? Now, I mean, if you're somebody that's into the hookup culture to the point to where you like to indulge in that sort of lifestyle, you're not married to anybody, you're not involved in any of that. I personally don't endorse having that level of lack of self-control in your life, especially for men. That's just my own personal preference, and I encourage guys to have a much higher level of self-control. And if you got to do that, go MGTOW and maybe go full black pill and just pull yourself away for a while. Go monk mode and work on yourself. I absolutely endorse that. But at least even for a period of time. I mean, the growth and the things that will happen to you and the things that will change in you are immeasurable if you do that. But when it comes to this sort of situation, we have to accept that our legal system is never going to be in the corner of sanity or reality ever again. It just hasn't been. Those of you that have seen the other video where I talk about what I went through during my divorce, it's a wake up call to get you to understand that the court system is all set up completely to make sure that they fleece whoever has the highest income, to make sure that they are constantly paying into the system. And you can even catch the other person committing perjury. They won't care about it. They'll be like, tisk tisk, you shouldn't have done that, naughty naughty on you. And then they just are like, but you'll still get your payments and it doesn't really matter. And I remember my attorney even telling me, make sure, Steve, that you don't commit perjury in any way. Make sure you're completely on the level. And I'm like, well, she's lying all over the place. And they're like, yeah, but if they catch you even in the slightest lie when it comes to this, your butt will be hauled out of here in cuffs and you will go to jail today. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is great. Yeah, my faith in the system is restored. So, and when it comes to an open marriage type of situation, I mean, really what we're dealing with is just a spillover of hookup culture right into it. Hookup culture infecting one of the oldest institutions ever. And I realize that there are many of you out there that some of us that are very, very red pill, all the way to the point of red pill rage, where we're like, women are just absolutely the devil. There's not a single good one, and there was never a single good marriage, and they can never ever be trusted. I think that that's a tad on the extreme. I realize that today's modern culture and society has infected women to the point to where, and men too. Let's be realistic here. Men are running around hooking up. I mean, if you're going to scream about hookups happening, Well, who are they hooking up with? I mean, if you want to point the finger and say women are running around hooking up and acting promiscuous and messing with pretty much every Chad they can possibly find, well, if men were to stand up and stop doing that, I realize that's never going to happen, but let's be realistic. If men were to stand up and stop doing that, then that problem would be over in an instant. Sort of like the adult entertainment industry. I mean, you can yell at all the people doing it, but they do that because they have a market of people to sell it to. They have a market of people to put it out there to, and that's predominantly men. And if men were able to hold each other accountable to the point where we could stop that, then that industry would be over. If they didn't have a market, they wouldn't bother doing it anymore, and we all know that. So I mean, we have to remember we're all in the same boat when it comes to this sort of thing, and no one is so completely separated from this particular topic or other subjects that they're out there in the middle of nowhere and the government is never going to tax them or affect them, and the policies that are going on in society will never affect them or touch them. Nobody is that completely disconnected. I know that there are those that try to say that they are. Trust me, it's almost impossible to get completely disconnected. I myself, I have solar power, well water. I have woods all around me. I live in a cabin I built and designed myself. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's never enough degrees of separation to where you'll ever completely get away from what is going on in society. I know there are people that are like, well, I'll completely separate out and I'll find a way to do it and I'll go full black pill. Not unless you move to some other country, change your identity, and figure out a way to completely hide. And then you got to deal with the local governments and the influx of modern ideologies that are going into other countries, which, if you've been following the news at all, America not only is so messed up with our own culture and social system, we're trying to spread it to everybody. Hey, all this stuff over here that doesn't work, let's make sure that other countries have it too. It's almost like spreading our own socially transmitted disease. We'll just call that another version of an STD. But that's pretty much all I have to say about that today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments below. And I'm going to open up something else interesting too. For those of you that have stories that you want me to share, and I can do it anonymously, so I don't have to identify you by name or give any identifying characteristics about your story, I can change the names. Please feel free to email those to me. I do have a business email, and this is strictly for the channel. And if you want to send me stories about what's going on and connect, it's Steve James Channel at gmail.com. You can just send me a full write up of just your experiences, your stories, things that you might want me to share. Maybe I'll cover that in one of the upcoming videos. I find that much more interesting than just going over some of this, some of the idiotic stuff that pops up on TikTok, YouTube, and social media all over the place. I prefer to tell the stories of real people, what they've done, and not only what they've been through and what they've had to experience, but how they figured out a way out of it, how they began to rebuild their life afterwards. That's incredible and great. So um, I open up that the floor to you guys for you to be able to do that, and feel free to reach out. And that's pretty much it for today. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. But before I go, I want to definitely make sure that you drop a comment below. Tell me about your experiences with this if you've had that. This idea for this video partly came from some things that I had made note of in the past, that I had seen, all the way down to therapists now actually endorsing something with an insane 92% failure rate. And then somebody had mentioned in the comments in one of the previous videos that they wanted me to cover this subject. So this is somewhat by request for this video. And as always, like and hit the notification button. And I look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Have a great day.